My name is Justin or Jpec, and this is the Project K podcast.
Yes, thank you for introducing the podcast, and welcome back to episode 11, where we do, like my friend said, we got Jpec, Justin. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good today. It's nice this Saturday.
Yeah.
Been a big week, but happy to be here, bro. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate you giving me your time.
Of course, bro.
Yeah. So what are the origins behind, your producer name? Would you call it that, or
I do get that question a lot, and it's nothing crazy, bro. Like,
Yeah.
my middle name is Peter, last name Sederholm, Justin Peter Sederholm.
Yeah.
Got the JP and the C.
Oh yeah.
And then I just threw a E in there.
Yeah.
We could have went with an A or an I, but I think the E worked the best.
No, yeah, it does work pretty good. It does work pretty well.
So yeah, that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And you're a producer, sound engineer.
Yeah. Yeah. Producer, audio engineer.
Yeah.
Started off as a producer.
Yeah.
And then transitioned into audio engineer, and that's kind of mostly what I do now.
Yeah.
But I like to do production as well.
Yeah.
Here and there. Yeah.
No, yeah. And how long have you been doing it for?
Ooh, like probably 6 years, maybe a little bit over. I started making beats in year 12, I think it was.
Yeah.
So that would be like 2016, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a while now.
And do you come from a musical family like anyone else in your?
Yeah, bro. Yeah. So it's just funny now. Like, my family is super musical.
Yeah.
We've always been musical, but now we're like peak musical. And there's a few different parts. But basically, my dad has always been a music lover.
Yeah.
He's always loved his vinyl, and he loves Pink Floyd and The Doors.
Mm-hmm.
And we always had like nice hi-fi stereo systems in our house.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of his thing. So like, as far as I can remember, we always had just a nice pair of speakers in the lounge with the TV. And we always had like big CD stacks, and vinyl and stuff. And eventually he opened his own shop, and he services turntables and also like hi-fi speakers and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's always been musical. And then eventually he started like collecting PA speakers, and then like DJ equipment.
Yeah.
So like CDJs, and then he started learning how to DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And now my dad's DJing like every single weekend.
Yeah.
I think he's 64 now.
Nice.
And he's DJing like every weekend. He's got a radio show on Radioactive called The Housing Project, and he does a set for like 2 hours every night on Saturday night. And then my mum goes along to all the gigs.
Yeah.
So she loves music. She doesn't do anything musical. I'm sure she could if she wanted to, but she's more like the supporter.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows my mum, and a lot of artists in Wellington do, because she follows them, and she's just like super loudly supportive on social media.
That is so cool.
She
Man,
comments
that is
on
awesome.
everything, and always is sending messages and stuff. So I'm really grateful for her, and she's really supportive for me. They're both really supportive of my career. And then my brother DJs as well.
Yeah.
So I only have one sibling, my brother, older brother, and so we're all pretty musical.
Man, that is a insanely musical family.
Yeah, it's pretty crack up, man. Like, my parents are partying more than I am. And,
Yeah.
like, they're out like every weekend, just living their best life, and it's nice to see.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see.
Yeah.
So being surrounded by that kind of environment, that you guys had, is that what kind of helped you move towards music and like want to pursue it as like a career and like producing? And that?
Definitely. Another memory is, like, we always had music playing in the house, and my older brother got a pair of speakers first in his bedroom, and he was always like blasting music from his bedroom, and that was just always a thing. It was like every day there was just music playing in the house. And then eventually I got my own pair of speakers. So then like we were kind of like playing battle of the aux, and I'd be playing shit and he'd be playing shit. And so I always from there, I guess, developed a fascination for music.
Yeah.
And then eventually like how it's created. And then one day I kind of stumbled upon, I don't know how the thought prospered entirely, but I stumbled upon a YouTube video on like how to make beats on FL Studio.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and then I fully bought FL Studios. I didn't crack it or anything. I bought and started making some beats on FL Studio and dabbling in that, and that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. Do you still use FL? No?
Yep. So I do all my production on there.
Yeah.
I can produce in Logic, and I do sometimes just because it's easier to work with other people who are using Logic. But I definitely make better beats in FL Studio.
Yeah.
And then I do all my mixing and mastering and audio editing in Logic.
Oh yeah. Have you tried dabbling in other programs, kind of like Ableton or like Pro Tools or?
I've tried Ableton. Gave up like instantly. Yeah, that shit is it's like alien.
Yeah.
But once you learn it, I know it's really powerful.
Yeah.
Cool. So all power to my Ableton users, you know. And then I learnt Pro Tools when I studied at Massey.
Yeah.
So I can use that like pretty proficiently, but I don't use it at the moment. But it's good to know because it's kind of industry standard. So
Yeah.
if you're if you're an audio engineer or a studio engineer, like in a studio, you kind of have to know Pro Tools. So it's good to have in the belt.
No, yeah. My brother's an audio engineer, and he's always suggesting to me that I use like Ableton and that, and I tried it once, man. It's like it's not as straightforward as Logic.
Yeah. I would say it's like being a builder. Like it's not really up to the tools; it's up to your skill set. I think you can make anything sound good in any DAW, like in GarageBand. Like you could fully make a song sound amazing. You just need to know how to use the tools right. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I think each program kind of has different things that it's good for, particularly. Like Ableton's really good for electronic music. And FL Studio is really good for trap music.
Yeah.
And that's why they're kind of more prevalent in those areas.
Yeah. No, I've heard like that. Yeah. Certain programs are good for like a certain kind of music, and you can definitely notice it. Like when I tried to, try to make a trap song on Logic, it's not as straightforward as FL.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit slower because FL Studio has the step sequencer.
Yeah.
So you can make a drum pattern in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Whereas Logic, you kind of go into the MIDI and like click it in, or you drag your samples in and then like line it up on the grid, and it probably take you like
it's a process.
two,
Yeah. I really had to like fish it out and find it through like YouTube tutorials and all that kind of stuff. And would you say you're mostly self-taught in your like in the work that you do and like your producing and your audio engineering, or is it?
Yes and no. I think my foundations, yes. But then when I started to really refine my skills is when I had like a lot of people in my life that knew what they were doing. Like there's one super prevalent person, Toby Lloyd, who was one of my teachers at Massey, and like looking up to him and seeing how he worked, that really helped me refine my skills. And I wouldn't be where I am without him. And working with producers like Johan, who's a good friend of mine, seeing him work and seeing the ways that other people think and how they create music has helped me shape the way I create music and think differently.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of my foundational skills I taught myself watching YouTube videos. And then I went to Massey and I studied for 3 years, and I learnt a lot about audio engineering and how to record and things I didn't know at all. But in terms of producing, I think I pretty much taught myself.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
And who would you say, like, when you look at like the world of music and you're listening to your favorite songs, and like what kind of producers or artists kind of like stand out the most for you, or like kind of you see them and it kind of like influences you a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say right now it's just changed over time, but as of recently I'm really inspired by people who aren't afraid to do something different or be vulnerable. Like that's kind of what I'm finding I'm attracted to now, is like I hear in a song like, oh, someone's done something different, or I haven't heard this before, or wow, that's actually really hard to say. Like someone sharing their story, and maybe it's a really hard thing. Like that's what's really appealing to me right now. I used to be more into like mainstream hip hop, and I was for a long time, and I still really appreciate that. But I've kind of drifted away from that now, and I'm more into like indie R&B, like UK jazz rap, like all these kind of more not so mainstream types of music.
Yeah.
And I think people in those realms are kind of pushing the boundaries a bit more and being more authentic to themselves, and that's kind of what I'm searching for. Is I'm searching for authenticity. People really telling, trying to speak on their truth. Yeah.
Do you think that comes with like the older you get and the more years of experience you gain? Do you feel like that is the reason for the changes in your influences?
And my influences?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as a teenager, it's hard to like know any better or know the value of that. You know.
Yeah.
Like I was more fixated on what seemed cool and what everyone else thought was cool. And then over time, my values changed, and I started to value more what was true and what was authentic.
Yeah.
And I haven't let go of that entirely. Like I still value what people think.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll ever not value that. You know, I think just being human, and me being like a people pleaser at heart, like I always kind of value what people think.
Yeah.
But I'm learning more and more what's truly important. Yeah.
Yeah. Any names come to mind? And you look at production and songs and
production.
Yeah.
Ooh. Like right now, I love like Hit Boy. Like he, in terms of mainstream hip hop, he's really dope, bro. And like Ill Mind, those guys are all great hip hop producers. Currently, obviously, there's the old greats like Jay Dilla and stuff, and they'll always be amazing. But right now, I'm looking at like those guys. There's someone else on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember his name. And there's just so many. Like I have like a following on Instagram. Like I cut back on everyone I was following on Instagram and tried to like specify to different things, and a lot of it is these kind of niche producers making real like crazy beats. So I have a lot of people I follow on my Instagram who are always inspiring me and making like crazy grooves and shit. Yeah.
There's one thing I wanted to mention as well, in terms of like producers. I had a little scroll on Instagram, and I did come across a video where Timbaland was reacting to your beats as well. How was that when you saw him like listening to your songs, and then I'm pretty sure he was singing along to them as well.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, no, that was pretty surreal, man. Like he's definitely one person I look up to. Just his bounce is crazy.
Yeah,
and then he's just a good guy as well. But fuck that. Yeah, that was crazy. I think I did watch that live as well. Like I submitted my music, and then you don't know when it's going to be played. Like it's just you kind of have to watch every single fucking Twitch stream until it plays. And then it did, and I was flipping my shit, bro. And yeah, it's just crazy to have someone who's that good react, and then react like positively as well. And that kind of reinforced me. There was like one beat where he said it was mediocre, and I feel like that was nice, to get like kind of humbled a little bit,
to like call me mediocre.
Like I'll take that, but sometimes you need that kind of reality check, because it's easy to like make heaps of beats and not show them to anyone and feel like you're the man. But to get some real world feedback is super crucial.
Oh yeah, like he won't. I've seen those streams as well. He doesn't take any prisoners with those beats.
Bro, he's fucking savage.
Yeah.
And so that's why I do value the good reactions.
Yeah.
Because there's I think like 99% of the beats he just stops them at like 2 seconds, and he'll just like he has these like clips from like random meme shows and stuff
Yeah.
that he'll play.
Yeah.
Or something like that, you know. And he won't even let 2 seconds of a beat
Yeah.
played. So I was pretty grateful that he played.
Yeah,
most
there
of
was
mine.
there was one part on the when he was listening to your music that I really liked was was when I can't remember which beat it was, but there was a beat where he likened it to AO technology. Yeah, and he started singing that along to. I was like, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
that
man.
was so cool because it actually fit really well.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah, no, that's a special moment, bro.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
Yeah, nice, cool. And you've just moved down to Wellington recently, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were in Auckland. How was it like? How did you find it, like, producing up there and doing your audio engineering up there as well? Like,
I think I really loved the experience and I valued the experience.
yeah,
And I'm grateful that I moved up there because so many doors opened for me. I do everything mostly online, or I was when I was up there. So it wasn't like a lot changed. Like, it's not like I got a new job and I was around all these new music artists. Like,
yeah,
I still had to go out there and network and have a coffee with someone. So I was just having a lot of coffees, Like, I was just hitting people up like, oh, let's have a coffee.
that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, so I was just trying to do that a lot. And it took a while for me to actually make some things happen. And I feel like I made like a decent network up there. Like, I probably could have done better. But I was still working with people in Wellington, so I was quite consumed by my clientele there.
Yeah.
But I managed to reach out a bit and meet lots of people. One person that I got a good relationship was with Calvin from Parachute Music, and he's kind of like, I don't want to butcher his position, but he's kind of like the community therapist.
Yeah.
In like the most beautiful way. Like, he's literally one of the most beautiful humans you'll ever meet, and he's always keen to have a coffee with anyone and just like talk through things in the music industry, how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Just be open ear. So it was nice to develop a relationship with him. And I worked with a few artists. I had a couple sessions up there, and I found it really good. Like, it's one of those places where you have to just go out and get it, and you have to know how to sell yourself as well. Like, that's one thing in Auckland, is because it's so densely populated compared to Wellington. You have to kind of know how to separate yourself a little bit. So I think just being Kiwi in general, like, you don't often have to talk up yourself. Like, normally it's more like, oh, be humble, bro. So actually knowing how to be like, oh, I make music and I can do this and that, and knowing your skills and being able to show that you have value without coming off like a dickhead, like that was an interesting skill to learn. Don't know if I've mastered it yet,
Yeah, you got to have a certain level of self-awareness as well. So,
yeah, big time.
Kind of like sell yourself to someone. Like, oh, man, I have a lot of trouble with that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, fuck, it's not easy, bro.
Are you like a naturally out there kind of person, like extroverted at all? Cause,
no, bro, definitely not extroverted. I say I'm like kind of in the middle, but I definitely go home after a big day and just want to be alone, bro. Like, that's me to a key, is like, and I don't know, I'm happy to see people, and that kind of always ignites like a positive experience for me.
Yeah.
So sometimes people think I'm extroverted, but I think I'm just happy to see people.
Fooled you.
Yeah, but then I do get a bit exhausted, like after a long day, and then when I go home, like, I just want to be alone, and I do need to like recharge my battery sometimes. And so I wouldn't say I'm extroverted. I wouldn't say I'm fully introverted. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, maybe leaning more towards introverted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do too well in big groups of people. Like, especially if they all know each other and it's just me.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I suffer, is like I go quiet and I can't talk because all these people know each other, and I'm here and I'm like, fuck, who am I? Like, that's where I suffer.
Honestly, I'm the same here as well.
But one-on-one, I really shine there. Like, I feel like I can have a good connection and feel comfortable.
Yeah. No, because I was just thinking, like, when you said you went to Auckland, you got to really put yourself out there when you're going to a new city and trying to make a name for yourself as well. Like, it is a little scary,
Oh, it's really scary, bro.
Yeah.
And it's because a big part of it is going to like events and stuff, and you're not always gonna have someone to go with, so you kind of just rock up by yourself and walk around and make some conversation, and like that in itself is hard, especially when everyone knows each other already. So there's kind of that aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, that's something I've kind of had to do with me and, the stuff that I do. It's like trying to insert yourself into the scene. It's like you almost just kind of have to like come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And do your stuff. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
What differences did you notice in terms of working with people from Auckland compared to working with people in Wellington?
I can't say that I actually worked with heaps of people in Auckland, to be honest. Like, I had heaps of people that were from Wellington come up and work for me in Auckland.
Yeah.
But from the people that I did, I mean, we were talking about it before. I think that there is a level of maybe people can be a bit more prepared.
Yeah.
And I think that in Auckland, because the environment is so densely populated, you have to try a bit harder to get yourself known. And to do that, you can't just make good music. Like, you got to know how to market, you got to know how to sell yourself, do social media. And people know how to do that here too, but it's just on a bigger level there. So I think that because of the environment, people were just inherently trying a little bit harder to take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
So there was that. So, you do a session and people were kind of like, okay, let's get to work. What are we doing? Whereas, like, if I have a session in Wellington, which I also really enjoy, is like, I'll probably have a conversation for like an hour before we actually start making music. Like, it's totally different. But I love both sides of it.
Yeah.
Because I love having a yarn.
Yeah.
And sometimes you make better music when you've had like an hour chat.
Yeah.
And then
Oh yeah. Like, you gotta have that
2 hours
chemistry.
left.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take it back a bit to when you were first starting. Like, you're starting to make beats. You decide that you want to do this. Who did you go to, or who gave you like your first song? Like, who asked you to produce for them? Or
So the first person I worked with was Kamikaze.
Yeah.
Or Casey. I went to school with him. A really good friend of mine. So shout out Kamikaze. I love that dude. But he was like, I feel like every school kind of has like that rapper guy, and he was that rapper guy. And he had like a couple of videos that went viral on Facebook of him just like freestyling. And then so he was doing his thing, and we're like, oh, this is so cool. We need to like make some music. And then I started making beats.
Yeah.
And then we ended up being like, oh, we should make some shit. And then he came over to my house, and I was making beats, and I bought a microphone, and then we started recording stuff. And then we had a guy called JDMC as well, and us three were like working together for like a whole year, maybe longer, just making music all the time, putting it out. And it was such a cool era, man. And we're doing shows and stuff together, and I'd DJ for them. And it was such a cool like little trio we had going on. And then that's kind of what propelled me into engineering as well, because we were making all this music, and then it needed to be mixed. So then I just naturally kind of progressed into figuring out how to do that. But yeah, those are the first two people I was working with, and kind of really grew our foundations then.
Yeah.
And made a name for ourselves in the Wellington scene.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first, probably one of the first songs or, bits of production that I came across from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, did you, you did the production for, like DB World's Cypher, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. How was that?
The first one I did the full beat. The second one I collaborated with Benjamin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So that first one, did you know Dan beforehand, or?
Yeah, so I knew of him for a while because he was making music videos with Rella, and I was like, oh fuck, this guy's pretty cool. And then we ended up making a music video with Kamikaze
Yeah.
for our song School.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
so
remember that
Dan
one.
offered to shoot the music video for us, or to Kamikaze, and then I kind of tagged along, and then I ended up meeting him in the shoot, properly. I feel like I might have maybe... Oh, no, I'd actually met him a couple times at some random shows.
Yeah.
Like, seen him around. And we kind of, like, were acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we did that shoot, then we were, like, really became bros.
Yeah.
And then after that, and we worked together, then he reached out to me and was like, yeah, I want to do this cypher thing. Would you be keen to help out? And that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, when you do ciphers, so do you, like, does the beat get sent to all the different artists and they're just like, fit a verse in here, and then...
No, so what we did is we had this beat, and then we would send everybody, like, the same section. So you'd have, like, I think we gave them 16 bars.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone rapped 16 bars, and then we'd take the vocals and then kind of arrange them throughout a whole beat. So the part that they rapped on was the same for everyone.
Yeah.
But then we take the beat away, got all these vocals, and then bring the beat back underneath, and we kind of just arrange where we think, like, who should go first. And that's like a whole process. I think on the first one, we nailed it first try, you know, like in the order of the verses. And we kind of like, you can then do like post-production and add different stuff on top, which I think we might have done a little bit, like all those like beat cuts and like little things to go along with what the artist is saying.
Yeah.
Like I think King Flame at the end says something, and we have like some sound effects like going in for your ears, like things like that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But then on the second one, I think we went through like 3 different versions of what the order of the
Yeah.
the verses were. But that's kind of how that happens.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I was always curious how those are actually done. I was
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely a process, bro.
Yeah.
Lots of liaising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 'cause I was like, wow, they're doing it on the fly. That's pretty cool.
I wish it all happened seamlessly, but no, it's a bit of a tricky process, you know, because you're dealing with so many people.
Yeah.
But everyone was so like cooperative, which was good. Like it took some time, but we got there.
Yeah.
And everyone was really positive about it, which was good.
No, yeah. No, it was really cool. In your, like, being a producer and audio engineer, like, what kind of... Sorry, just, like, taking the conversation elsewhere.
No, yeah.
What are the main, like, struggles and issues that you've kind of gone through and faced, you know, coming up as a producer?
Just more on actually trying to make a name for yourself, you think?
Yeah, kind of like that, like trying to get your name out there and, yeah.
I think for the first like year that I was making beats, I felt really like I feel stupid saying it because there's so many producers, but at the time I thought I was the only one making beats. Like I just couldn't see anyone around me, and it's kind of hard to find. Like if you search up like music producers on Facebook and you find a Facebook page, it's all like old people that have, you know, into weird like audio stuff, which is really cool. But like I couldn't find anyone my age or around my age making beats and stuff. So actually like finding the community was probably a hard part. I mean, this was a while ago, so maybe it's different now. But back then it actually took me a while. And then eventually I started finding this whole scene that was happening, and I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, this has been happening the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's when we started going like the Valhalla shows and stuff. So that was like the initial struggle, was actually finding the community. And then actually creating like value to your name, that people trust you enough to work with you. You know, like you can't just expect that people want to work with you. You got to actually be bringing something to the table. Yeah. And I think it's easy to, like I was saying before, if you're making a lot of beats at home and you're not showing anyone, like it's easy to feel like you're the man, and then you send them out and then no one uses them. And you're like, oh, they're not using my beats, bro. Like, fuck, these are mean, bro. Oh, they must just, you know, not know what they're talking about. I'll just send them to someone else.
Yeah.
So like getting out your own way and getting feedback and realizing where you actually are instead of this fantasy that you have in your head.
Yeah.
Because for a long time I thought I was a lot better than I am. And then in that process, figuring out your value and then having people trust you to actually work with them. And then also getting those like industry skills, especially if you're teaching yourself, like knowing etiquette, knowing how to work with someone in a session efficiently and get the best out of them. How to carry yourself professionally.
Yeah.
How to get your royalties, how to get paid correctly. Contracts, when should I have a contract, when should I not have a contract. Knowing who to talk to when you need to do marketing or need to get a connection or make something happen, like all those things when you're teaching yourself is like the only way to figure those out is just it comes with time and experience and knowing people and expanding your network. Or if you can do what I did and go to Massey or another school that teaches music, and you might learn some shit there. Definitely won't learn everything, but you'll definitely learn some more industry standard knowledge around how to operate within the music industry, which is good. That's all I can really think of at the moment. Yeah.
No, yeah. I just wanted to touch on something that you mentioned, like when you're in the studio, if you're in the studio with an artist, like what's something that's like most important to you? Like how would you personally get the best out of someone? Like has it got a lot to do with how well you know that person and such, or?
Definitely. I mean, you can't always know someone very well. Like sometimes you might be meeting someone for the first time and making music with them, but being able to create that open space where they feel comfortable, and because music's a very vulnerable thing for an artist, especially like if they're going to start talking about some things that are close to them, being able to create that open space where they feel they can do that is really important. So just being a nice person and showing like, hey, I'm not going to judge you, like I'm here to serve you and make some cool music, and that's it. Like that's really crucial. I think a thing that I always say is like, no idea is a bad idea. That's really big. If I'm in a session, like you never want to feel like you have an idea and then you can't say it because you're worried that everyone will think it's stupid. That's like the worst feeling. I've definitely felt like that, and I know everyone else has probably felt that.
Yeah, man, I've definitely felt that.
So I always try to cultivate that mentality, little things like that, and I think just making the artist comfortable to be themselves is the biggest thing as a producer if you want to get the best out of them.
There's something I forgot to mention, and it's actually reminded me of what I wanted to say when you were talking about Kamikaze. Did you guys made a song? I'm trying to remember what I saw, but it was something to do with a song that you guys did that was on like a Wu-Tang thing, or what was that about?
Yeah, it was. It's not as cool as it seemed, bro. Like we thought it was cool at the time.
Yeah.
But we paid to be on that.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be more of like a money grab thing
Oh,
by them, which is a bit sad, because Wu-Tang like is fucking sick.
Yeah.
Dope as. But I think it was like 2 members from Wu-Tang, and then they started this whole scheme that they were doing Wu-Tang mixtapes around the country.
Yeah.
And then you just pay to have your song on the mixtape. But there was no standard. Like, it wasn't like they're trying to curate the best mixtape. It was just, we'll just take whoever will pay us money. And so once we realised that and we paid them, we were like, oh, this isn't actually as cool. And it didn't really pay us much dividends other than everyone thinking we were kind of cool because we were on Wu-Tang's mixtape. But we didn't actually get much exposure. It was just the people that already knew us were like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, yeah, it was cool, but it wasn't as cool as we thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say it was a bit more of a learning experience for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was just a bit shit, like realizing that, like you could just feel that it was more around the money and not actually trying to help underground artists get exposure.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what it was about, and that's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Learning experience, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a kind of like, I wouldn't say a stigma, but like, you know, like in terms of like underground music, especially in New Zealand, do you think it's like, okay, I can't think of a better word, so yeah, let's just say stigma. Do you think there is one around the underground music scene in New Zealand? Although some artists
Like a
from
stigma around what?
like just the kind of music that comes out of, like, let's just say popular music that comes out of the underground scene, kind of like, you know, music that's popular in the States, you know, like...
You mean like Sampra?
Yeah, like Sempra and Bubblegum and Latour and that.
And then you mean like a stigma from like everyone outside of the underground, like who support that? Like,
yeah, so like
regular mainstream
if
audience?
you look at the mainstream music that mainly gets played in New Zealand, you notice it's sort of like it's like a certain kind of sound that, you know, it's not, it's more radio friendly. Yeah.
LAB.
Yeah.
660.
Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with these artists and the music they make. So it's good music, but like
Definitely.
when you've got other artists who like bring in like huge numbers and their popularity is just insane overseas, like I feel like there kind of is like a gap between, you know, like these two types of music that are being released in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I know what you're saying, bro. It's I've talked to a couple people in the industry, and there are like gatekeepers to, you know, the radio rotation and like what's getting pushed through the magazines and the media and stuff, and ultimately what's going to be on the charts. And they kind of have like a quota around what they're choosing, and they see it. They see Sampra and they see Lil Bubblegum. They know they're there. They know what they're doing, but for some reason they're choosing not to show that in the mainstream.
Yeah.
It's starting to kind of work its way a little bit now. Like, I feel like they're starting to adopt it a little bit, and I'm talking about like the mainstream industry media, and like the big labels and stuff. I think, I don't know the facts, bro, but they see it, but for some reason they're choosing that. Okay, this is not what we want to support. You know, we're more here, and I don't know if it's a bad intention or a good intention.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what's happening, and then that kind of dictates how the rest of New Zealand perceives it as well, or at least the people who listen to mainstream. Like, if it's not being pushed, then I think subconsciously, as a human being in New Zealand, you kind of, it's easier to outcast it, you know, just like, oh, if it's not being supported by radio, then I don't really care about this music. And then it takes people who, you always have the outliers in a population that, I don't want to be mainstream. I want to listen to something that's a bit more underground. I want to find these people that are getting rejected. I want to find the what would you call them? I want to find the people who are breaking the boundaries and breaking the rules. Yeah. There's people that are attracted to that, and those are the people that are supporting like Lil Bubblegum and Sampra and stuff, which is super awesome. Yeah. And then they have all that support overseas, and I mean, like, that's almost better than support from New Zealand. Like, if they're doing well over there, then fuck, they made it in a sense, you know. Yeah. And sometimes it feels like one or the other as well. And again, I don't know the facts, but sometimes it feels like you can only either be famous in New Zealand or you can be famous outside of New Zealand. You can't do both. Like, if you look at Lorde, you know, like, she was doing so well overseas, and then I think it got like more towards the end of her run. Like, we were at the start, we're like, oh, Lorde's from New Zealand, you know, and then once that kind of got normalized, people, like, the media started kind of, it was almost like how the media treats the fucking royal family, you know. They're like, they're starting to look for all the negatives, like, oh, Lorde was, I don't know what the headlines were, but, you know, if she was, you know, on the beach or something, they'd be like, oh, Lorde was wearing a green bikini and it looked weird or some shit, you know. And it's like, the media starts focusing on the negatives, and then the perspective of New Zealand starts to be like, oh, well, we don't want to we don't want to claim her anymore. And then it kind of feels like one or the other sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel that.
No, yeah, I feel like it's because there's just a lot of like there's like a tall poppy culture in New Zealand. It's a bit unfortunate. It's not just with, you know, music, but it's just an unfortunate thing that happens, and I feel like that's something that applies to, you know, Sempre and the bubblegum, like, to an extent, you know.
Yeah. No, definitely, bro.
Yeah.
There's definitely tall poppy, and I feel like that's kind of just that it is everywhere in the world.
Yeah,
But New Zealand especially, we just seem to have a bit more of it, and I'm not sure why.
I think because, like, New Zealand's such a small country, so if someone makes it big outside of the country, I think we blow it up because, you know, we're so far away from the rest of the world, and
Yeah.
we're a relatively small country.
Yeah, I think that. And, like, or if you look at, like, Israel Adesanya,
Yeah.
it's almost like because he didn't represent New Zealand enough, we're like, oh, you're not from here anymore, you know? And it's like we want more. Like, we're like, oh, you didn't do enough to show that you're from New Zealand. You know, like if he wears the flag of his home country, where he's from in Africa, then and instead of wearing a New Zealand flag, then some people would be like, oh, we're not claiming you anymore, you know?
Yeah, that's so shit.
It's like there's like an expectation of like how much you have to show that you're from New Zealand. Like you have to be proud you're from New Zealand, which is cool. I mean, I'm proud I'm from New Zealand, but you shouldn't have to prove it though.
No, and like, you know, getting on someone's ass and like not wanting to claim them because, you know, they also represent another country. You know, like Israel Adesanya is from Nigeria. You know, he represents the country that he was born in. So it's like, come on, man, just
it's not a big deal,
stop,
you know. Yeah. So I think that's a part of it. Then there's probably like a multitude of factors as well.
I'm sure there is. Yeah, but like, you know, like you said, you know, we don't have all the facts, but
But I think we're becoming more and more self-aware of it too.
I think so. Yeah.
And there's so many conversations like this one we're having now, and there's plenty of other podcasts talking about it. And that's the first step, you know, being self-aware. Just like when you're dealing with your own shit, once you realise you have a problem or something you're dealing with, that's the first step, and then you can actually figure out how to deal with it. And I think we're kind of in that self-awareness stage right now.
Yeah.
And we're figuring out how we can maybe do a bit better. And it's probably always going to be there, but we could probably handle it a bit differently.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're seeing the mainstream industry maybe adopt artists like Sempre and stuff a bit more. And I know that they're Sempre and the Wellington managed by Dan Woolston, I think his name.
Yeah.
And he's part of Sniffers Magazine, which is kind of like a big part of the mainstream media and stuff. So I think he's probably making a big effort to kind of bring them in a little bit more, which is cool to see. So I think the cogs are moving. You know, we're seeing change. It might take a while, but it's definitely better than it was like 5 years ago.
Hell yeah, man. We're definitely getting there. Yeah. Just one of the last questions I want to ask you. If you had any advice for anyone wanting to pursue, like, you know, music, wanting to produce beats and, you know, eventually get into this industry, what kind of advice would you give them, and what would you tell them?
I'd say, like, if you feel that kind of fire inside you where you want to create, then just make sure you're out of your own way. Don't think too hard about the end goal. Just focus more on the creation and just let it flow. Don't worry about what other people are going to think. And especially if you're just starting out, you know, just start making beats for like a year, and just make a beat every day or every other day, and just keep going. You know, consistency is the key. Just keep doing it until you feel like you've kind of established a sound for yourself. That's like a really big part of it. And make sure you're showing people. Not everyone has the privilege of having people in their life that would sit down and actually listen to the beats, but there are people out there. Even if you just reach out to someone that you maybe admire on social media and just be like, hey, I made this beat, can you just give me some positive feedback? I mean, if I can send it to me, I'll give you some feedback. But having that is really important because you need to know where you're at, and sometimes you can't really tell by yourself. But yeah, just make a beat every day, and until you, like it's hard to know exactly when you're ready, but I'd say normally, like if you're making beats consistently, like every other day for a year or two, I'd say once you get to that 2-year mark, then you're probably making some decent stuff that some artists could get onto.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some freak fucking geniuses that could start making quality beats in a year. That's awesome if that you can do that.
Yeah.
But I think most people should lower their expectations and expect that, you know, it's probably going to take you 5 to 10 years to really find your sound. And I'm still finding my sound.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't figured it out yet, but I know how to, I can make a good beat and I can tailor it to different artists. Like, I know how to achieve different sounds and make it good quality. And I know that now because I've had feedback from other people, and I've, you know, it's not just in my head. I've talked to people and they've told me your music's good. And that's not just from one person, it's from multiple people in different areas as well. And I listen to a lot of Jpec, and he was saying, do you know Jpec?
Yeah. He is.
He was saying there was a study on like the most successful people in companies, and it was like there's 2 types of people. There's one person who knows a lot of different types of people, and then there's one person who knows a lot of the same people. So you'd say that this person has friends that all know each other, and then this person has friends that don't know each other, but they're all like from different walks of life.
Yeah.
And the latter person ends up being more successful because they have a dynamic range of perspectives, whereas like the other person, if you showing them your beats and then everyone else you're showing with your beats are all in the same circle, they're probably all going to have the same perspective, and they might all say it's good, but you haven't actually brought variety of perspective into the mix. So make sure that you've got variety, and people, you know, show your beats to someone who listens to metal music and someone who listens to jazz, and they'll tell you different things, you know. That's really important. So yeah, to wrap it up, just make beats consistently, get feedback, and once you feel like, you know, once the feedback starts like, yo, this is pretty good, like I think you've got something going here, then, you know, just start sending your beats out to artists for free. Like, you can't expect too much at that stage. Just send them out, get on the emails, get an email list, and just start sending them out. And trying to work with people, get people to come over to your place if you have a studio, and just start making things happen. Show up to shows. You have to support. You know, you can't expect things to come to you if you're not giving back. So if you're not supporting other people, you can't expect anyone to support you. That's how I always believe in giving first before receiving. That's a big part of it. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of my recipe. There's a lot more you could do as well, but that's what I can think of.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, you heard it here from Jpec himself. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Right, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
No, it's
my first podcast, bro.
Yeah, man. It's good. It's good to, you know, get a producer on and, you know, chat about this kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's important, bro, to have these conversations.
Hell yeah. You know, like you said, it's like, it's good to get different perspectives from, you know, all kinds of people. Yeah.
We're doing our part, you know, in this New Zealand music culture. We got to have these conversations and unwrap these things, and be prepared to say the wrong thing as well. You know, like I might have said the wrong thing in this podcast, but then being open to the conversation that comes from that. Like, if you say the wrong thing, then just being open to someone else's perspective, and they might be like, hey, like, I actually don't agree with what you said. I think it's like this. And if we can just be open and start having these conversations, then maybe we'll start to see less tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand.
Yeah. That's why we have these conversations.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. For anyone that is interested in what you do, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is on Instagram, Jpec the Butterfly Boy. That's where I'm like most active. And then I have a website for anyone who wants to work with me, or you can see my work on there, jpecmusic.com. And then I'm on Spotify, Jpec on there, and those are the main ones. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for being here, and that is us.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Sweet.
My pleasure.